guys, how's everybody doing?
Hi, Dr. Morgenstern.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? Congratulations.
Thank you.
We are all so flippin' excited for all of you guys. We're extremely proud, just so you guys know, like really proud. You guys are rock stars. Hopefully everybody is settling in with the new idea of where the next adventure takes. And like I said, we're extremely proud. Give a couple more minutes for a couple more people to come on here. Um, this isn't for this is designed for you fours who just matched to talk to anyone who's up and coming about your experience, through matching. What do you think worked? What do you think didn't work? This isn't time for necessarily us to spout, like us attending, should I say? And I think I might be the only attending on right now, anyways. But this is really just a time for you guys to talk and share your experiences. I do find it helpful that each one of you guys that did match to take your turn, try to say like what did you do to get yourself up, and just remember sometimes we've got ones on here, we've got twos on here, we've got threes on here, so kind of take it back in your head about making your decision, um, do's and don'ts, things that really helped, that type of thing. And it's really a time for you guys to pass along your knowledge to help the next generation be as successful as all of you guys have been. Because again, this was an amazing match. We're really proud of all you AU guys that matched, and couldn't be happier to see you guys burgeoning your wings. And Luke, I don't know if Luke's on here or not. You're stuck with us, buddy. I'm sorry. um and really show what you guys have done. So with that said, I kind of turn it over to you guys to take care of it, and I'm just here gonna kind of sit in the background and listen, and jump on in and help out as needed. But this is really a time for you guys to talk and pass along all your great knowledge about how did you be so successful. Does that sound good to everyone?
All right, Luke Martin, you're the one staying here, so probably have the shortest story. Why don't you go ahead and start us off?
All right. So, I mean, I came into medical school not really knowing that I wanted to do urology, I would say. So, I think the biggest thing is trying to early on get experience in all your interested fields and find what you want to do. I found urology kind of through working in the OR as an anesthesia assistant, and then talking to Dr. Terrace and learning more about it, going to shadow the adult side and the ped side. Use your time early on to shadow as much as you can. After that, yeah, you definitely have to do great on third year rotations, have to do great with your steps. Those are very important. And then once you've got through all that, I would say one of the biggest things is learn as much as you can about all the programs out there, all the options for you. Um, Ask people about it. Everyone kind of knows different things about different programs. Get their opinions on it and learn as much as you can so you can make an informed decision on where you're applying, where you're doing your interviews and your final rank list. But yeah, overall it's a long but fun journey, and I'm very happy with where I ended up.
Tell them where you did your aways and what your thought processes went into that.
Absolutely. So my first away I did in Philadelphia at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. I did 4 weeks just peds urology. I did that because I think I'm interested in peds. Um, it definitely grew my interest. I think being there, seeing more. They do some crazy stuff up there, so I enjoyed getting that chance to go. After that, I went over to Cincinnati. They've got a great peds program as well. Got to experience another new city. I had never been to Cincinnati before. So that was great. And then my last away was Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, and they're a great team down there. They're a lot of fun. So I definitely enjoyed my time going aways. My big thing was show that I'm willing to travel, just so I could open up my options. I am um, trying to couples match with my partner. She's ENT. So definitely wanted to show that we're willing to go anywhere if needed, but glad to have ended up back home.
Great, thanks. Um, how about the other Luke, Luke Scanlon? You want to tell us about your story?
Yeah, I can kind of give a synopsis. So I matched at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, um, and kind of to give you my backstory, I came to med school wanting to do emergency medicine. I think the urology interest group was kind of a big transition point for me and what I wanted to do. So I think if you're not part of the interest group, I think you should join. It just gets you exposed to all the faculty, residents, and all of the workshops. Um, I did a few research projects early on, which kind of I was able to do more intuitive and more in-depth research towards urology later on because of that. Um, like Luke said, third year is important. I think grades matter a lot in these subspecialties like urology. Um, I think step two is kind of the big milestone that you should, try to do really well on. Um, and then I can talk about my ways. I did UAB, Kentucky, and Mayo Rochester. I thought, and my home one at MCG, I thought four was maybe kind of pushing the limit a little bit. I think it depends on how strong of an applicant you think you are, and how well you do on your ways. I would definitely shoot for at least two. I felt like my last one, I was kind of struggling to kind of be energetic and be engaged. I was so burnt out. Yeah, I would say, just wherever you go on your ways, 30 rotations, I think the biggest piece of the puzzle is just have a really positive impact on everyone that you talk to. Your letters are super important in urology. You never know where connections can form, from internal med to urology. It just doesn't matter. Just be a really good person. And I think that's kind of the most important part.
Thanks. And your recommendations are very solid. I think you definitely need to do two. More than that is going to start wearing you down. But if you worry about your level of competitiveness, it can certainly help. So that would be up to the individual applicant, and we would meet with you and discuss that and help you decide what you wanted to do as far as that's concerned. So thanks for that. Pierce headed to Chicago.
Sure am. Yeah. So I guess I'll start from the beginning, like these guys. Also didn't know what I wanted. Like, what I didn't even know what urology was coming into med school. Luke was the one who kind of got me into it. Luke Scanlon. He was like, "Hey, do you want to apply for this position to be the co-president of the urology interest group?" I was like, "I don't even know what that is," but I did it and kind of figured it out through that and got exposed to the field and to the people, and the rest is history. I did my two aways. So my biggest thing is I kind of wanted to get out of the South and spread my wings and go to a bigger city. So I was interested in New York and Chicago for that reason. Um, did my ways at Mount Sinai in New York and at Loyola in Chicago. Um, just a tip, honestly, this is kind of going towards, this is one of my big pieces of advice going for kind of the people who are third years, I guess, now starting to take step two and figure out your ways. Definitely do your ways at like the places that you're most interested in. I think that that just heavily increases your chances of going somewhere. I know a lot of people on this call ended up going somewhere that they did their ways at and they're very happy about. I didn't necessarily look into like exactly where I wanted to go and wasn't, I was more just like geographical, which I do think is important to show your interest in like, oh, I don't know if I would have gone to matched at U Chicago. I don't know if I would have gotten an interview there had I not done one at Loyola, which is also in Chicago. But like, you know, definitely would have made a more confident decision, and had I done one at U Chicago. You know what I mean? So just kind of take your time to look into what you're interested in, where you want to go before you do a ways. And for the M1s, another thing that I think is important. And obviously, we've talked about like your grades and your step scores. Those are obviously going to be very important. You guys know that. But I just think, personally, for me, one thing I've always tried to do is just be like a very well-rounded applicant, just kind of checking a lot of the different boxes and stuff. And so, research is important in urology, but like you don't need you don't need all of the research. Just make sure that you're interested in it and pursuing that stuff, but also like some leadership, some service. I just think that like showing a well-rounded application is always a very important thing. So that's something that you can start doing now. If you like look at your application or talk to Dr. Terrace and say, hey, where am I kind of lacking here? And maybe getting involved in something or doing something that kind of just adds to your application as a whole, making you a well-rounded applicant, I think is um, important. But always happy to answer questions about anything and where I did a ways and all that stuff. But yeah,
What was one thing that you would say is a do not?
I think you were muted there, Dr. Terrace. Sorry, I saw you were trying to talk.
Dr. Morgenstern has a good question. Is there a do not?
Like something you say, watch out for. Do not do this.
This one's kind of small, but I just remember um, hearing this on my first year's thing, and someone was like, "Never say that you're tired on an away. Like, if anything, say that you're hungry or something like that. Because like if like they're always more tired than you, they're working harder than you. But I think that goes to just show something that we've already mentioned. It's just like have a positive attitude. Like you know, to always be a positive impact on the thing. Don't make someone else's life harder, and just like you know, smile as much as you can, suck it up. I think if you're like, oh, I'm tired, or like show a bad attitude, or like, hey, you want to come to this last case? You're like, oh no, like I don't really want to do that. It's just you know, it's probably not gonna. That's not the best impression that you want to leave.
That's a good one. Yeah, I was muted. Sorry. I was talking to Brenna though, so because she also was very strategic in where she wanted to go in the world with
Yeah.
her aways. Why don't you tell us about your experience?
Yeah, so I knew kind of when I was applying to a ways that I was probably going to want to go to Georgetown, which is where I matched. I'm very excited. So when I was picking a ways, I decided to do University of Oklahoma, and I chose that because my mom lives in Oklahoma. It was kind of going to help me, like Pierce said, like spread out of the South and show that I would go anywhere. And then also I could be near family. So that's kind of a big thing too. People want to know that you have, even if it's a little bit of like a stretch, it's nice to just have something to be like a connection. So I did Oklahoma first. After that, I did Virginia Commonwealth. The reason why I did VCU is because VCU and MCG have a really good working relationship. There's lots of MCG grads at VCU. And so I knew that that was going to be somewhere that I was going to be interested in. So I wanted to go and like actually experience it for myself and see how I would feel about it. And then I actually did Georgetown third. So I definitely was tired, which is a little nerve-wracking because just like Luke said, you do kind of get that fatigue. And for me, I felt like the pressure was really on because I knew that I wanted to match there. So I think in hindsight, I personally would have maybe just done two. I think for me, doing the three aways and one home sub-I was just kind of a lot. But it is true also that some people, I met someone on the trail who did six aways. So I think that just depending on your circumstance, you might have to do varying numbers. But that was kind of the order in which I chose. I think that, like I said, yeah, I probably would have done one less, but I got to learn a lot about the programs and everything. I do think to add to the one or things you shouldn't do, when you do socials, like for the in-person interviews, which is awesome that you have in person, you really have to resist the urge. You don't want to go too crazy at the social and then not feel great for the interview day, which is something that I saw happen on my interview days. And like at one of my places, the residents all really loved one of the applicants. And then he did really poorly on interview day because he was didn't feel great because he went out the night before. So I think that it's just like one of those things. I remember hearing that from Dr. Terrace on this call last year that you should try to, limit yourself to one drink. And that's really true because the residents aren't the ones interviewing, it's you. But yes, that's my 2 cents about in-person interviews and away rotations.
Hey, Brenna, do you have any good resources that you could point them to that like helped you kind of either look through, deciding urology or, the ways and the match, anything that you can point them in the right direction?
So I did use the like Google, the Reddit spreadsheet. I used that. You have to use it kind of with a high degree of discretion because some things on there are just kind of BS-y, but there is good information on there. I also like whenever I was researching programs, would look at their like Twitters and then like their program information that they put out. So I think doing research on specific programs when you're applying is really helpful. Also, one of my interviews asked me straight up what I did to prepare. So sometimes it just, it's nice to show that you like actually looked into it. So I used Twitter and then like the Reddit spreadsheet and then went through every program's like specific information.
Good. And that's a great reminder to us all, to the earlier stage students, is that Twitter, while it's, or X, may be dying on the vine in the big picture, it's still the best place to get match information. I mean, there's still a lot of good, there's more and more stuff on Instagram now, but Med Twitter is still alive and well. And the Society of Academic Urology, American Urologic Association, all of the programs have Twitter accounts, and they will be posting when their open house is, when they're having different events, whether they have a research year opportunity or things like that. So even if you think it's the devil, sign up for a Twitter account, and it can just be for following urology programs. Um, so I think still on my profile, I have pinned the Twitter accounts of a lot of the urology programs to get you started on who to follow. Um, so that's a great tip, because that's where you're gonna, and you also, as Brenda said, get kind of a feel of the personality of the program. If they're only posting, once every 6 months, and it's never, the residents out having fun together, that tells you something, right? So, or they're just they're bad at social media. That may be all it's telling you. But uh, the ones that do post a lot, you get a good flavor for. Like Florida, they're all out fishing on the ocean together, or some other things like that. Um, so it is useful. Um, Will, you had an interesting pathway to where you matched. You had a foot in the door already. You want to tell them all how that went?
My older brother, who graduated from MCG, is a PGY3 at Rush, which is where I ended up matching. So I did an away rotation with them. And yeah, just, I mean, kind of what everybody else has said so far is definitely true and something to keep in mind. I definitely think you have a much greater chance at matching at a place that you do an away rotation at. So keep that in mind. But I think it's sort of difficult to really get a feel of a program just off the internet. And you can talk to people and you can use the spreadsheet, but I mean, everybody's different. Everybody's going to have different interactions with people. So definitely use that as a tool, but I do think it's, a challenge to kind of really feel what a program's like from afar. So if you're interested in a program and you really think you want to go there, I definitely, recommend trying to do an away rotation there. And then the other thing I think that I would recommend is, after all that's done, when you're applying to your programs, I think writing like personalized personal statements for programs, I think is definitely something to keep in mind. I think I actually had a lot of success with that. I didn't do it for all of them, but if there's some place that you once you get out on the trail and start talking to people and people speak highly of a place that you may not have considered before, um, you know, putting something at the end, you don't have to rewrite your entire personal statement, but putting something at the end that says, for whatever reason why you're particularly interested in that program, whether that's, people and family that live in the city or anything along those lines, I think that can be really helpful to try to get you some extra interviews at places that you maybe didn't rotate at. And then the only other thing that I would add is kind of along the lines of what Pierce was talking about not saying that you're tired. I think that they're obviously the residents, are working long hours and everything. And I think that one of the things that I heard quite often was that, just being an enjoyable person to work with, I think, especially from a med student perspective, I think is really important. I mean, obviously, you're going to spend a lot of time with whoever you end up matching with, and people want to work with people that they enjoy working with. And so, having a positive attitude, be willing to do things and take work off of the residents and the attendings, I think is really important. And they can teach you the urology, and so you know, obviously you should have some knowledge going in, but they can teach you all of that. And really what they're looking for is people that they're gonna enjoy spending 80, 90 hours a week with. So obviously be yourself, and don't force it or anything. Don't be somebody that you're not, but definitely just be present and willing to work and willing to participate, and just be a pleasant person to work with, I think is really important.
Great points, Will. So, two in particular. One is having a connection to that area. If it's a program different than the place where you went to med school. So, obviously, with your brother in the program, that was an easy one for you. But like Brenda said, her mom in Oklahoma, that gives her an easy one. Any connections that you can, to your top programs that you can convince them that you really want to be there may be helpful. No guarantees, but may be helpful. And the other things when you're doing your rotations with the private practice urologist, it's often a more shadowing them than you're actually having to take care of the patient's situation. And what Will said about being willing to roll up your sleeves and help the residents get through the work that needs to be done, that's really important for all of us. And those rotating through at Augusta, you kind of pick that up as you go. You may not as much if you're at one of the regional campuses, but just keep that in mind that your level of participation would be more than what you would get shadowing a private practice person. And do a rotation with us.
Paris, I was going to bring up the rotation things. You guys who are on the AU campus do actually have a little bit of advantage because you guys start your clerkships earlier. So we highly recommend if you're going to do your sub-I with us is doing that, in the April or May before you start getting into where all the other programs have their sub-Is. So we really encourage you to come with us. We're going to, take you by the hand. We're going to show you what you need to do. We're really try to tune you up to try to go out there and put your best foot forward. So don't forget that when you're kind of starting to look at your elective schedule and everything like that to try to go ahead and get their sub-I with us. For anyone who's on the outside campuses, we really encourage you to try to get here as much as you can and let us see you because we really have our feet on the ground with the societies and the other schools to try to get you guys ahead earlier as much as possible. So use us to help you be the better you.
Absolutely right. Please come work with us. The one caveat is that please try to take step one first. We had a lot of people this year that were trying to study for step one and step two while they were doing their third year rotations and struggled because of that, either on the rotation or on the exam. So try to get those done when you're not on rotations. The earlier, the better. Step one particular, do it before you start your third year rotations. Salil, you didn't really decide where you wanted to go until after you started doing your rotations. The rotations sold you on that. You want to tell us a little bit about your thought processes?
Yeah. So I think for me, I knew that I was going to consider like the Southeast, but then I didn't know what other regions I wanted to do. So two of my ways, I did one at USF in Tampa and then one at UNC where I matched Chapel Hill. But I didn't really know, whether I wanted to consider the Northeast or if I wanted to consider like going out west more like the South Central region, I think, what they call it in the Midwest. But I ended up coming to the decision that I didn't want to do too much in the Northeast and I'd rather go out to like the Texas, kind of Oklahoma, Midwest area. And so I did my third away at Oklahoma. I think it was nice because I got interviews in that area and I think it helped me like show that I was willing to leave the Southeast because my other two were, pretty close to Augusta, so I wanted to have one at least a little bit further away. I think it was nice because they were all three like different rotations, like different programs, versus like on the academic spectrum versus more clinically based. And I think that was really helpful, and like size wise too. Um, and then, yeah, so I mean, that was kind of how I picked my aways. Um, and then I think kind of talking, I think they've covered a lot of things so far really well, but I think just talking about the rotations in general, like the away rotation, I think one of the biggest piece of advice is that I heard on this call last year was, when you're doing the aways, they're an absolute grind. Like they're tough. You can't sugarcoat it, but don't expect to expect to be there all day. Like when I went in, I expected to be there until 6 or 7 o'clock. Like I did not expect to go home early. And I think that really helped me because, when I was there late, I felt it was fine. Like I prepared for this, but then when I was able to go home early, it was like kind of a little bit of a reward. So I think that was kind of smart, advice that someone gave on here last year. And then I think also there's going to be moments on these aways where someone's going to pimp you like a lot and you're not going to know the answers. It's going to be really uncomfortable, but I think just know that going in and, be okay being uncomfortable. I think that's the biggest thing. And I think, be okay to say that, you don't know the answer or something you're going to look up later and get back to them. And just show that you're willing to admit that you don't know something and willing to, study up on it or read up on it for the next day. And you'll have the answers the next day. And I think that was one piece of advice someone also gave on here last year that I think holds really true. It's just, there's going to be uncomfortable moments, but you just got to, stay true to yourself and get through them, but expect it, I guess.
Unmute myself again. All right. So we've got a couple of questions popping up in the chat. So any advice for the M2.5s just starting their core clerkships, rotation, step 2, anything you'd do different if you could go back in time? Salil, you're still up. You want to start that? Yeah, you're muted.
Yeah, I can start about that. So I think like Luke Martin was saying already, and someone else was saying, like, just do really well in the rotations, like when you're on your clerkships, because I remember specifically in one of my interviews, they read about the comments that someone left on my pediatric rotation, which I thought was like, I didn't think they read that stuff. Like it was on my MSPE and they were like, someone on your pediatric rotation, like left a really good comment about what you did and how you, did on that rotation. So I think, make sure they've said, you're going to be watched a lot and you don't know what people are focusing on your application. So just take everything seriously and try to do your best and really put your best foot forward on the core clerkships. And then, I think when it comes to like step 2, I think taking it as, you really want to be prepared and ready to go because it's really important to have a good score, but try to get it out of the way as earlier as you can so that you have time to do, your home sub-I with MCG and then sign up for all the aways through VSLO because some of them, you don't know when you're going to get them. You're going to apply to some and you may have to move dates around. So I think having that ability to have as much time in your fourth year to schedule or third year or fourth year to schedule everything is really beneficial. I think that was a nice part of like getting step 2 done sooner. So just something to think about.
And I want to add something to that. This may be an unpopular opinion amongst the fourth years, but when you retake your shelves, like you have the opportunity to retake them, even if you did really well, I would just go ahead and retake it because it forces you to study for it. And if you get a worse grade, it doesn't really matter. Because step 2 is just shelves, just a longer version of shelves. So if you have the chance to retake the majority of them, I would definitely say you do it.
I agree 100% with that, Luke. And I think the reason that you guys have done so well on step 2 is because they required you to, previous years have been required to take the shelves. Y'all weren't, if my understanding is correct, y'all aren't required to take them, but recommended to take them. And I think that's the best prep you can do for step 2 is just to retake all your study for your shelves, like you're going to take the shelf. And then right after you finish those, take step 2. I think our our folks consistently did well because of that.
From my career advising hat on that too, guys, because I work as a career advisor, something to think about when you're balancing, your rotations and your scores. Like Salil brought up, is like you don't know what they're going to read, and a lot of times your grades are based off of your clinical experience. So a lot of people like I got to rush off and study. Really focus while you're on those rotations to make a really good impression on the residents and the attendings. A lot of times the residents will ask the attendings will ask the residents what are going on, because those comments do matter. And you do have in your back pocket, and I'm not saying don't study, I'm saying you got to balance this, that you do have a retake. And a lot of other schools don't have those retakes. So it's a really good system. And the way it is right now, you only see your best score. So really put your best foot forward on those clinical rotations and be really there, and not having to bury your head in a book, because you do have those times to do that. And that's a good suggestion, to go ahead and retake the test, because if you've already done well on it, it doesn't hurt you to do it again.
100%. Any of the rest of you have any thing to recommend as far as starting the core clerkships as a M3?
I guess I have a way to stay or to get involved in the urology department during third year that I feel like a few of us did, was just going to like M&M or some of the conferences. It's kind of a nice way just to you get involved and you're around, but also, you're getting to know people. And especially if you do end up applying urology, then it's really helpful to kind of have a longitudinal relationship, and for your letter writers to be like, I do know her. I've been seeing her around for the past, 2.5 years, is different than if you just kind of wait until sub-I and that sort of thing. So I feel like that's just kind of something you can add into your schedule to be involved with the department during third year.
It's a great comment, Brenna. And plus, it gives us something as letter writers to put in your letter that you were showing up for M&M or pre-op conference, even as a second year, or even when you were a third year on a different rotation. And that looks good. It says, number one, it's nice for us to have something else to say about you. And, how many times can we say, they're a hard worker and with a good attitude, right? But if we can say something specific that demonstrates that in a letter, I think that goes a long way towards supporting you when we do write your letters. So before your fourth year, you were addressing this question about, is there somehow to get involved? We also have a research electives that you can take during your third year. So if you wanted to set one of those up, you can come and do, and we'll structure it whatever way you want. If you want it to be a little bit of research and a lot of clinical, just to see what's going on in urology, we can do that. If you get your rotations somewhere else, but want to have kind of a third year rotation in Augusta, you can take one of those research electives and we'll do that. Or if you are rotating with us, but you want some research, you can do that rotation as a third year. So that's one way you can get more exposure with our department before you hit your fourth year, and would welcome you whenever your schedule allows that. So another question is for the fourth years, what did y'all use to prepare for urology rotations, such as your elective sub-Is and waves, in terms of urology specific knowledge? So were there any books that y'all found particularly helpful, Smith's or any of these other handbooks that y'all found useful, or websites? Can anybody speak to that? Brenna, you're still front facing if you want to.
Sure. Is it like Weeders, or I might be saying that wrong.
urology thing.
It's like if you
Pocket
Google
guide.
yeah, the pocket
Yeah,
guide.
it's
Pocket
Weeders.
guide, yeah.
Yeah. You have to email a guy. I think it's literally Dr. Weeder, and you PayPal him however much money. But it's two separate books. It's oncology and non-onc. And those are great. Those are very easy to digest if you're a student as well. And then I went to AUA this past year, and they have a little guidelines pocketbook that I would carry around. And then just kind of the normal apps like Amboss and UpToDate, just to pull up in clinic. And then if you have a case the next day, you should look up the relevant anatomy and that sort of thing. But yeah, those were my main resources. I don't know if anybody else used anything else.
I would say I can add to that. People that liked Anki, I feel like that was something that was good for me, like for like remembering things, like moving from one away to another. They have the Beth Israel has like a deck, and it's like pretty solid for like general like urology principles, understanding. And then I actually added some cards to it that like questions that I got like asked about frequently or things I felt like were important to know that I was getting asked in the OR or with management stuff. So that was another one. And then I think the surgical book. I can't remember the name of it, but you can download the PDF version, and it has like the cases,
And
like some of
men's.
yeah, Hinman's. Yeah, it has the cases on there. And I think that was good for like some of the questions that they would pimp you on in the OR, or if like it was a procedure that you couldn't find a video on YouTube or just didn't really had never seen before or understand. I think it is helpful. It's kind of dense and tough to read, but it is helpful.
And I would say like the most underrated method is to ask the residents what the attendings will pimp you on, because there are, I think the majority of questions I got right was from asking the residents questions that I would have had no idea how to answer unless they told me that this is what's going to be asked. So definitely do that before every OR day for with a new attending.
And another thing I did was kind of use my friends in here, and I was like, "Hey, Salil, hey Luke, you guys already did in a way. Like, what kind of stuff did you get asked?" Just to kind of like, and they compiled a list, and just to kind of get your mind moving, and some of the more common things that people pimp you on. You're obviously gonna get stuff that you don't know, and then circling back to Weeders, I had an online version of that. Um, I think if you read the Weeders for like a pathology or a case you're gonna have the next day, like you're gonna get a lot of it right. And if you don't get it right, it's just super niche and something you probably shouldn't know at that point anyways. So um and then what was the last thing I said? Oh yeah. Re-emphasizing something that someone already said. Uh if you do get pimped on something and you don't know it, like try to remember to look it up that night and know it for the next day. Cause like honestly, and even if they don't ask, just like to make yourself look like, hey, we were talking about that yesterday. I just looked it up or something. Just it just shows that like you remember and you're dedicated to learning and stuff. There was a attending that I had one of my ways that he would ask you and then go deeper and deeper. So like I would always look up what I didn't know and then and some because I don't want to go on the same thing. Like, okay, well then what about this? And I was like, I didn't look that up. And he was like, well, why didn't you look that up? It's like the same thing. And I was like, oh, I don't know. But yeah.
One thing I did is every time I got pimped or anything, whenever I heard some fact I hadn't heard before, I would write it down. And I had this notebook I would read through like once a week of just everything I'd learned so far in urology on my ways and stuff. And then another resource I used, AUA has a medical student curriculum, which I thought was pretty helpful. Just real quick, I need to learn about acute scrotum or whatever. Like you could read through that. So that was helpful. And they had physical exam videos and stuff like that too. So it's good.
Yeah, that's a good one, Luke. The so it's auanet.org is the AUA's website, and you can just search on the homepage for medical student curriculum, and there's some topics there that have really they've put some work into that should be sort of your frequent flyer issues that you'll see on your sub-Is. Any other questions? You can ask them in person or add to the chat. Based on your past experience and that of your peers, did you feel that your clerkship campus placement played a major role in your career journey? The individuals there are absolutely great teachers and their hearts are in the right place and they want you to do well, but they're not academic urologists. So I would just emphasize that probably if there's a disagreement between what we're telling them and telling you and what they're telling you, if it's about academic urology, probably go with what we're saying. I know Charlene, your shoes on here. She's a good example of somebody that's at the Savannah campus, but has been very closely in touch with us here in Augusta, and is going to be fine because she's got it figured out. Dr. Morgenstern, you got anything?
I think that's very, very fair. What I a lot of times talk to students when they're looking at competitive specialties is you have to remember that the vast majority of the programs that you're applying to are academic programs. So if you can relate on an academic level, you're going to fit in better. I mean, that's just kind of the way, our society works. So I completely agree with some of those things. I think that they're great teachers out there. I think they have their places, their minds in the right place. But, Dr. Terrace and Dr. Clausen and Dr. King are all going to the Society of Academic Urology this weekend. So they really have their, we tend to have our finger on the pulse a little bit more and can hopefully give you a little bit more constructive feedback. I don't think the campus downplays you. I think that what we try to upplay is trying to be, involved with us and, getting out to our mode research, thing in March, and being involved with us just really helps you get your leg up because we're the ones that are, in that environment a little bit more. But I don't think it downplays you at all. I think it's a matter of letters of recommendation, good on your sub-Is, doing really well on step 2, and being involved with us are some, winning recipes for getting a match.
They don't prepare you poorly, but you need to also partner that with getting to know us. I think, I don't know if the M4s want to, but when you do your rotations or your interviews, they're going to say, "Oh yeah, I know Dr. Clausen," or "I know, tell Dr. Terrace I said hello" when you're at your interviews or you're doing your aways, because it's a small specialty. We know each other, so we can tell you what to expect a little bit more. So, and I'm not dissing the regional campuses at all. They do an amazing job and are very important, but please depend on us on the match advice.
I had every single one away from Augusta besides internal medicine, even though I was an AU-based student. And honestly, I think it was probably one of the better things to happen to me. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not, but typically these small regional campuses will inflate your grades. And if you show up and work really hard, then you will get all A's, and it gives you a better chance to get something like AOA, for instance. And I thought the level of care was pretty good. I wouldn't do anything different on a regional campus. You show up, you study for yourself, and you go to your next one. But I think it's in some ways it can actually be kind of to your advantage.
Sorry, I'm driving, but I wanted to second what Luke said. I think also doing general surgery away at a different campus was really helpful. I did mine in Albany, and I got to do a lot in the operating room, which was a really helpful experience being the first assist, then going to some aways where I was able to be the first assist to like a urology surgery. And if I hadn't had that experience going away, since obviously MCG has more residents on the campus than these regional campuses do, so you're not as often like first assist or getting to do a good bit of like a big open case or something like that. So I think that's a specific rotation, and also OBGYN, which is also heavily surgical, that I think is actually super beneficial to do at regional campuses and make sure that you kind of get someone who has been vetted as giving good operative experience to students.
I agree with both your comments. I think the regional campuses do a great job with the clinical experience. But match advice was my point, that you really need to get that from us. They're not going to be able to advise you, but yeah, get out there, get your hands dirty, first assisting on some cases, and have a little bit nicer schedule, get some better grades, whatever you have to do to maximize your application.
I was just gonna say, about OB, I did OB regional in Albany, which was a really great time. And the attending that you work with, his son actually went to MCG as a urology resident right now at Detroit Medical Center. So that was kind of a fun little like connection. And I got to talk to his son about urology stuff. And so that's a good rotation. If you like know you're probably gonna have to go regional, then doing OB in Albany was pretty good actually.
So I have to tell you a funny story. So that guy, his dad's an OBGYN. Salil, plug your ears. His dad's an OBGYN and his grandfather's an OBGYN. So he started his personal statement with, my dad's an OBGYN. My grandfather's an OBGYN. I owed it to the ureter to go into urology. So So it was a popular joke. Um, and that does give you kind of a flavor of the kinds of humor you can get away with on your personal statements too. I mean, you don't diss anybody really, but those kind of generalizations sometimes make for a good opening.
Yeah, I'd also like just real fast. I think you said some great things about the regional campuses, and I think that they're fantastic. But I also think that there is something to be said about being at a large academic center like Augusta. I think that there's, learning how to kind of operate and seeing how a system like that works. I think there's also value in that. And, so I think, you'll be fine either way. But, I do think that there's, pros and cons to both. So just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, I guess if I can add one more thing, sorry, I'm not trying to talk too much, but I feel like Will has a really good point. I will say that hopefully this hasn't been said before, but Augusta trains us really well for doing a lot in clinics and in like the floor work and in the operating room. And I think all of those things bode really well for an away rotation that you might not have if you were only at a regional campus, like Will is saying. But I think having a mix of both is a great thing.
I was gonna say it also just you work with more residents and you just see like what residency is like, and you get to figure out how to be a good resident and how to help make residents' lives easier, which is a big part of being a fourth year medical student.
That was the same point I was going to make, Pierce, is just having a feel for the whole residency hierarchy thing and where you fit into it and you know how stuff flows downhill. That sort of thing is getting used to that and knowing how that works is an important step. If you've not experienced that when you become an intern yourself, no, you don't go directly to the attending necessarily, depending on the program, to ask them a question. You talk to your chief resident first, and they, just knowing the chain of command and how to use that to your advantage is important. And you should get that from a ways, but you're not necessarily going to get that if you do all your rotations at the regional campuses. Okay, here's one. Did y'all go to the AUA annual meeting during your third year? And if so, have any advice? Pierce, you want to tell us? So if you go to a big city, take care of your belongings, right?
Oh, that's what you're referring to. Yeah. That was tough. Um, yeah, I lost my phone. I did go to the AUA during my third year and I lost my phone. And so the day of, well, it got stolen, to be fair. It actually did get stolen. If you like check the location of it, it was in an undesirable location in Chicago. So I was like, I didn't put it there. I've never been there before. I'm not sure if you're asking, do people go to present or just to go? I was lucky enough to be able to present one of the abstracts that I submitted. So I went, and I thought that it was honestly pretty helpful. You just like you go when you meet a lot of people, especially if you're presenting, or even if you just like go to these little posters, podium or these poster presentation things. Like you just see who the residents are um, at different programs. I just like chatted a bunch of them and was, got a feel, oh, how do you like your program and stuff like that. And then was able to actually use that to my advantage. Earlier, we were talking about like personalizing personal statements and just say like, hey, I had a great conversation with one of your residents during one of the, AUA meetings and am interested in your program. And like, I think that's personalized enough. And it kind of gave me a pull for programs that I really didn't know anything about or have any ties to that. So I thought that was the biggest use. And I think now actually the AUA they're doing a speed mentorship dating thing, which I did last AUA, and just got to meet like different program directors across the country. And honestly, like I was really nervous for it because I was like, oh, this is like an interview and they're gonna remember me and stuff like that. But it's really just a time to like get insight into like programs, honestly get like practice into talking with program directors and chairs and things like that.
Good. Anybody else have anything to add about meetings? I know we um, certainly when we're at meetings, and I will try to introduce you to different chairs and program directors as they come by your poster, or if we're at social functions together, I'll drag you around to meet some folks. Whether that makes an impression on them or not, I don't know, but I think it at least helps people know that I'm in your camp, and the program, our department backs you up, so you're the real deal.
Yeah, I can't believe I forgot to say that. Hang out with Dr. Terrace at every meeting you go to, and she'll introduce you to like anyone. And you're like, oh, you're interested in Mayo Jacksonville? Here's their chair. So that's definitely probably the most important thing.
Yeah, I
Not,
went to AUA in San Antonio. It was San Antonio, right? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And when I was presenting, Dr. Terrace like got in the question line and asked me a question and then was like, by the way, this is one of our applicants and she's applying this year. Like, keep your eye out for her name. And so everyone was like, oh, so it was really nice. And so I think it's very true. If you stick with Dr. Terrace at a conference, she'll definitely get you introduced to some important people.
And you did well in spite of that. Huh? All right. So when should we start going to conference, and do we need to post our presentations to be able to go? So you can go whenever you want. The MCG will give you money to go if you've got something to present, though. So I think that you've got a better in if you go. Now, the Southeastern section meeting this year is just next month, right? In Nashville. So some people that one might not be a bad trip. And AUA's in Las Vegas. That's going to be, I don't know, that's going to be more of a fun trip than a improve your career chances trip, I suspect, for many people. So if you get something accepted, that's fantastic. Definitely go. Definitely submit to try to get things into these meetings. It's not as clear cut that you're going to get as much out of it if you don't have anything to present. I'll be honest with you, but if you're still trying to decide what to do for your specialty and you want to see what academic urology is like, that's certainly a good way to see it. So we're coming up on an hour. Does anybody else have other questions?
Dr. Terrace, I think we missed a question. Jenna asked, it's about the mode symposium,
Ah,
information on that. And I think that is kind of like also a great thing to put on your CV, and definitely do it if you're interested in neurology. I think we kind of start being able to present them as a second year. Is that right? Just because of the time constraints and stuff.
yeah, the third years get first dibs because they've got applications they need to start getting ready. But it is, hang on, let me tell you, it is coming up on March 8th. That Saturday is the Mode Symposium. And if you email Kim Maddox, I'll put her email in the chat. She is the one that can give you the information and the deadlines um, to get a proposal in for the meeting. We do have some case report material that we can share with you if you don't have anything to present. Not a lot. And like I said, the third years get first dibs since they're closer to having to have stuff on their applications. But if we have stuff left over and you're a first or second year, get your name in the hat and we'll try to get you in there. Yeah, so navigating research while on the rotations depends, I mean, some people are pretty good at it. I know Luke and Will and Pierce and Salil all work together on some projects. And that's a good way to do it is get a gang of people. So whoever's got the easier rotation can work on it when they can and split up the task. Okay, you're gonna write the introduction and you're gonna do the literature review and that sort of thing. So if it's a time consuming thing, they were going through a lot of data and working on statistics and things. Certainly, if you do have something that needs statistical review, I would get Dr. Ainge involved earlier rather than later to help you with the statistics. Y'all should all know her. She's in charge of the student research. And if it's just a case report, that's not that difficult to write up. You'll be able to do that nights and weekends on your rotations, by and large.
Yeah, and also don't be afraid to use other people interested in neurology in grades below. Everyone's looking for research, and they won't be on rotations when you're on rotations. And I know there's some people on this call who have helped me with some projects that has been very useful, whether it's, like doing some of the data mining or it's just like, hey, I kind of just need some help writing up this manuscript or something like that. It's always nice to just kind of split up the work a little bit, and then using your blocks that you have off, I think is a nice time to be able to really dive in on some research. You'd be surprised how much research you can do if you give yourself like a week of just grinding on it.
Yeah, even if you've taken a block off to say study for step 2, your eyes are going to fall out of your head if you do nothing but study for step 2. So you can use the research as kind of sort of a break from time to time to think about something else that's less stressful. It's pretty easy to get case reports published in either surgery case reports, urology case reports. There's a couple little journals that will publish those. It's harder but more prestigious to get actual research on patient data or something like that published. But those are also the ones that are going to get accepted to meetings and get you some travel too. So they're more work, but they're worth it. All right, Dr. Morgenstern, you want to wrap things up for us?
Sure. Sorry, I had to leave the office, so I'm just on my phone. This is an exciting time where we're seeing our fledglings fly, and we're very excited about that. And we're very excited to see all you guys on here, getting more information. This has been recorded so that you guys can go back and listen to any of the advice that's there. So please reach out if you want the recording as well. We're here to help you guys. That's what we're here to do. It's a part of the reason why we're in academic medicine. So please, meet us early, meet us often. We're always around to help, and good luck with this journey. It's an exciting one. It's a fun one. We're here to be here for you guys. So please don't hesitate and reach out as you guys need.
Thanks so much to the 4th years. Y'all are on the home stretch. Congratulations to you all. We're so proud of you, and best of luck.
Take care, everyone.
Thank y'all.
Congrats.